Everybody to the September 3rd City Council meeting. Madam City Clerk, we'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance. Who do we have here? I can't see who's out there. Mike, who's back there? Is that Mike? Do you want to lead us in Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you very much. Mr. Heath.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right. May we have a roll call, Madam City Clerk?
Councilmember Lee,
Here.
Councilmember Papajohn.
Here.
Councilmember Brownrigg.
Here.
Vice Mayor Stevenson.
Here.
Mayor Coulson.
Here. I do not believe we have any requests for AB 2449, so we can pass through that. And we have a report out from closed session. Mr. Spansale?
No reportable action was taken. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So all of our activities. Okay, the next item on the agenda, number 6, is upcoming events. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off, but that allows colleagues to think about something that might be coming up they want to talk about. We're going to start with the library. The library is hosting a grant series, Adventures in Genealogy. First up is Building a Family Tree, 10:30 to 12 p.m. Saturday, September 14th. All are invited. In honor of United Against Hate Week, please join the special author event featuring illustrator Rafael Lopez, talking about Maybe Something Beautiful, how art transformed a neighborhood. This event is Zoom only, Friday, September 20th at 9:30 a.m. Shanta Nimbark Sakharov takes us into the world of healthy condiments, discover the significance of spices in Indian cuisine while learning how these versatile condiments enhance the flavors of various dishes, followed by a Q&A session as participants sample the chutneys paired with homemade chai and crackers and a delightful culinary experience. That would be Saturday, September 21st at 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. in the Library Tech Lab. All of these events require pre-registration. You can go to the library's events page to sign up. In addition, we have this Friday, we have our Movies in the Park. We will be showing the Disney movie Sing. The movie will begin shortly after sunset, which should be around 7:30 p.m. in the Washington Park baseball field. Popcorn and juice will be on sale for $1. Number 2, do not forget to sign up for the family campout. This event will be Friday, September 20th to 21st. I don't know if anybody's ever been to that, but it's really fun and everybody brings their tents and everyone have their kids all over the place. It's really fun. You spend the night and then the next morning you have a wonderful pancake breakfast. So we'll see everyone for that. Are there any other events? Anyone? Yeah, go ahead. I know we have a few more and I'll let you all talk about them.
Sure. On Sunday, September 22nd, there is an event at the Burlingame train station for the launch of the electric trains for Caltrain. So please come. It is at 1:00, and then we'll be catching the 1:50 train to San Mateo, where they're having a larger event at 2:00. Everyone is welcome, and it's no cost, and the trains are free all weekend.
Oh, great. And we'll have some snacks and gift bags and things like that.
Yes, absolutely. Please join us.
Perfect. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On October 5th is the All-City Disaster Preparedness Drill in the various neighborhoods across Burlingame. If you haven't done one before, there's ways to get involved. Highly educational, great way to meet neighbors if you haven't met them before. And it's just a morning session. I think it lasts maybe a couple of hours, and that's on October 5th.
Anyone else? I have one more, which is the San Mateo Daily Journal will be hosting a senior showcase in our community center on Tuesday, September 17th from 10 to 2 p.m. Let me make sure that date's right. I believe so. Let me just take a quick look here. And that event is free to the public. Anyone welcome. Let me just take a quick look, make sure. Yes, Tuesday, the 17th, senior showcase. Can just show up and there will be lots of vendors there, different people that you can visit with. And I was there last year, I think there were 200 or 300 people that came. It was a very busy day and drop in is just welcome. Everybody can come. Anyone else? Any other? Yes, please. Vice Mayor.
One other is, sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind for a while, but the California High-Speed Rail Authority is still active in the state and looking at expansion plans, and there's going to be a briefing and update at the Burlingame City Community Center on September 18th. So if you're at all interested in that, just recommend attending.
What time is that, Peter?
I'll double check. Off the top of my head, I believe it's 7 p.m., but I want to make sure.
Okay. That good? Anyone else? Okay. We'll go ahead. Oh, yes, please come on up. Mr. Heathcote.
All right, thank you. Just one quick announcement that the Bayfront cleanup is coming up.
Oh, yeah, that's another.
That'll be on September 21st. I'm usually out by the Embassy Suites area to come and help and volunteer and keep our coastsides clean.
Where are we meeting? Sorry.
It's at the Embassy Suites.
Embassy Suites,
And what time is it usually?
usually around 9 a.m., I believe. I don't have the exact time.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. If there are no other comments or members of the public who would like to comment or add anything, we're good. All right, we'll go ahead and close that item and we'll move on to presentations. Our first presentation is from Cora, and it's about something we started approximately a year ago, I think, Madam City Clerk. You brought it to our attention and introduced us, and I believe council may have even provided a small grant to fund it, $10,000 maybe or something. And this is a project which really helps and collaborates with businesses to allow us to get the message out around the potential for overcoming abuse in relationships. So we're very excited to have you here today. Can you please just introduce?
Thank you. My name is Norma Alfaro and I work for Cora, Community Overcoming Relationship Abuse. And you are correct. This all came about a little over about a year and a half. There was a young lady that was horrifically murdered on the streets of San Carlos. And San Carlos City Council didn't want to just let it go. So they partnered with us to create the Speak Up program. And you guys quickly jumped on board. So not only do I want to thank you for the time tonight, but for your support in helping us bring this program to the businesses. It is surprising with 48 years under our belt, how many people don't realize that the Cora services are there to help them. So this helps us get the word out to them as well. So thank you on all counts. But Speak Up, and this is what I present to the businesses. It is 3 modules. It's a brief understanding of what domestic violence, intimate partner abuse is, how to recognize the red flags, and most importantly, what you can say and what you shouldn't say if you have the opportunity to help someone. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men are victims of intimate partner abuse. Of the calls that we receive at Cora, 90% come from women, 9% from men, and 1% comes from the transgender or the gender non-conforming community. And that number is low, not because it's not happening, they're just underreporting it. Okay. Now, we are moving away from saying domestic violence and using the term intimate partner abuse. And the reason for that is many people, when they hear domestic violence, believe that there has to be violence in order to be considered abuse. And we know that abuse happens in many forms. Physical is just one of it. It is about power and control, and it's done through the use of fear, manipulation, and intimidation. And there's a cycle to it. Nobody goes out looking for an abusive relationship, and they all start the same. 2 people attracted to each other. They want to get to know each other. They're asking questions. But our survivors tell us that that conversational style quickly turns into more of an interrogation, and that all the decisions that they've made are being judged, and that they feel as if they're walking on eggshells, and that their responsibility and their job is to keep the abuser calm. But the tension escalates, and the abuse happens, and it can happen in any of those forms. The physical, there's also the emotional, the yelling, berating, economic. They may be allowed to have a job, but they can't keep their check, or they can't have a job at all. And the spiritual, they're not allowed to practice the religion of their choice. And if they have artifacts at home that represent the religion, they get broken or they disappear. And latest and greatest, tech. Every keystroke of the computer can be monitored through the use of cell phones. They can track where you're going, where you're at, and forward text messages to a third party without your knowledge. So all information is there. But after the abuse, we go into what's called a honeymoon phase. And during that time, the abuser is very sorry. There may be tears, promises that they're going to get all kinds of things done that they've promised in the past. Now they really mean it, they're going to do it. And our survivors say they believe them because it goes right into a calm phase. They get little gifts, they start to keep the promises, and things seem to be okay. But quickly the tension starts to escalate again, and we're right back in the cycle. And this can happen one right after the other, or it could be weeks or months between occurrences. Now, how do you recognize the red flags? Controlling. If you have somebody that's living this situation and you go out for a cup of coffee or for a meal, you can't enjoy the time you have with them because that phone is blowing up. They want to know everything, where you're at, what's being said, how you're getting home, who's saying what. They're just very controlling. Bruises, if you can see them, they're going to be on the forearms or around the neck, but many times they're bruised in places we can't see. Okay? Or inappropriate clothing, like on a day like this, a big old ski jacket or a turtleneck doesn't come off. Okay? As survivor blaming, the survivor is told that this is all their fault. It would not have happened except they did or they didn't do, and you can fill in the blank, and it doesn't have to make sense. The weather is their fault. It doesn't make sense. And love bombing, when these relationships start, they're very intense. 1 or 2 dates, let's get married, let's have children, let's move in together. And sometimes a healthy relationship can start like that, but it quickly comes back into the normal range. This doesn't, and it leads to them trying to isolate the survivor from family and friends and coworkers, with the goal being that they're the only person they have that they can turn to for everything. The $1 million question: why do people stay? Many reasons. These are just our top ones. Fear. We don't know what they've been enduring behind closed doors, and they're just very afraid of what's going to happen when they say they're going to leave. And if they have children, the fear of, will this person still be in their lives? Are they not going to have a mother or a father? All those questions come up with children. And culture, depending on the culture, a whole other set of things that they have to overcome. And finances, welcome to the Bay Area. It's hard to move if you have money. If you have no money or very little money, it's almost impossible. Okay. So what can you say to help? If you suspect that they're in this situation, the 2 things you want to offer them is, I'm here if you want to talk, and what can I do to help? And keep in mind that the life that they're living right now is harsh for them. And it's going to take a couple times of you bringing this up before they believe that you are sincere in your offer, and they take you up on that. If you know that they're actually living in this situation, the 2 things that are critical that they hear from you is, I believe you, and it's not your fault. The 2 things the abuser has told them will never happen. So you want to make sure you tell them, I believe you, and it's not your fault. Now, what I think is the hardest one is what you shouldn't say, because many people, this is the first thing that your gut says. Why don't you just leave? And you shouldn't say that. One, it's the only part of their life that they still have some control over how and when they choose to leave. And the other is, if they believe that you're judging them, they may shut down. So if you're the only lifeline that they have, they just lost the help that they could get. Okay. So Cora, we've been around for 48 years. We have a 24, 7-day-a-week hotline with counselors that are ready, and they speak different languages. They don't need to wait until they're in the terrible battle. They can call beforehand and just to check, is this behavior in a healthy relationship? Is this a healthy relationship? If by chance the dialect or the language that is needed, we don't have a counselor at that moment, we do have access to a language line and we can make it happen. We have emergency shelter. We have legal aid, mental health services, and children's services. And we do not care about their immigration status. We can't help them with that, but we sure can get them safe. Okay. And that's what we have. And then I've left some things for you.
Okay.
We have stickers that work really well in bathrooms when people are alone with a QR code and a phone number. Okay. Then I have secret cards, my secret card. They say Cora, but they don't say what Cora is. And they have a phone number and a QR code. So if someone needs to wait until they're safe to make that call, they can take this with them. I've left some and I'm glad to bring back more. But that is the presentation. I don't know if you have any questions.
Yes, I'm sure we will. Colleagues, does anyone have questions for Norma regarding the program and its implementation? Yes, please. Councilwoman Lee.
Thank you so much for the presentation, for doing this work. It's really important. How much do you see happening with elders, say 65 plus?
It happens. I presented at a senior center. I'm hoping to get into the one here in Burlingame.
Great.
And I had many questions and a lot of sharing. So it is still happening for seniors, and it's happening at younger and younger ages as well. We're looking at middle school at this point.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I would welcome you to speak to our senior groups.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Lee is our liaison to our senior group, so you might want to connect with her directly.
Thank you.
slee@burlingame.org can get you to her. And we're really grateful for all that work you do. Yes, Councilwoman Papajohn.
Yeah, I just, first of all, thank you so much for your presentation and just bringing this awareness to more people. I just have a couple of comments. I mean, when I was looking on your website, and I know you quoted tonight that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men, and then, transgender, which is pretty much underreported. I mean, I just find that is so tragic. It's, there's just so many people who are affected. And I think even, in and around us, there are people that haven't spoken up that, that we may know. And, it's really tough to speak up. It's really tough to do something about it. So I just really appreciate your service. And I thank you for partnering with the chamber. I think that was just such a brilliant idea to work with the businesses to help with visibility. So I just wanted to really thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Other colleagues?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I have a question, which is what more can the city do for Cora?
Oh, wow. All kinds of things.
We,
We
we do fund you, I believe, in our community grants. Cora puts in every single year, and I do believe we provide small contribution for that.
We have other programs as well. We have a program that reaches out to the little guys that have not experienced this in their households, and we provide healthy and good activities for them to do as a family. And believe it or not, having dinner at the table is still a new idea in many homes.
Mhm.
Then there is the youth program, again, trying to get to those middle schoolers and helping them evaluate what is a healthy relationship and what is not. But any of those programs, and Speak Up would be happy to receive additional funding, helping with the emergency shelters. Or actually, if any of you have a business that needs to hear from me, if you can throw me that name, I'm happy to reach out to them directly as well.
Thank you.
I have a couple. I have an idea. I used to own an indoor soccer center for kids, and about 3,000 kids go through a week down on Rollins Road through the Burlingame Soccer Club.
In there.
And I would suggest that might be like families and
Cool.
kids are over there. Let's talk about that. I'll email you.
I'd
Yes.
like to add, sorry, I'm going to throw one more in. There's Tony's Closet, which was set up at Cora. It is an amazing boutique store that they've created where people who are getting back on their feet and setting up their first homes after they've come out of something have a chance to shop for free for all these brand new goods.
Oh, great.
Go to Cora's website. They're always looking for new inventory for.
Yeah, I actually, oh, pardon.
Go, please. No
Um,
problem.
I did go to the website and I saw that, and it wasn't clear. It looked like I would buy an item, but it would get shipped to my house. Is that right? And then I would have to bring it to Tony's Closet?
I'm not sure how that's working. I think we're just taking it, if you bring it in, it just needs to be new. We redid a portion of our warehouse, and it's a store. It really is lovely.
No, that's wonderful. I wasn't sure about the logistics of that.
Yes, please, Vice Mayor.
First of all,
Stevenson.
thank you. Tremendously important work, and I had the good fortune of attending the San Mateo Council of Cities event where they have elected representatives from all over the county come, and the whole focus was Cora. And so we got a tour of the facility and met some of the coordinators and activities. One question I had, though, is what could the city do to help connect the broader network so that as you are kind of dealing with very urgent situations and oftentimes the first time an issue is reported, how do you help, what other organizations or other things the city can do to help with the transition, particularly if they're not going to end up being able to repair that relationship? Does that make sense? Kind of the broader network, like where do
Like Samaritan
Like our emergency.
Post or the other core service agencies.
Yes, and we coordinate with them as well. We receive calls from out of San Mateo County as well, and we're able to refer them to organizations that do what we do in their county. And of course, if it's an emergency, we're going to help them out of that first, but we will refer to the county agency.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'll wrap up then. I'll bring it a little bit home. Ms. Alfaro, I really appreciate it, you coming here. I think sometimes people assume that domestic violence, or not, like you say, you're not even using that word, just, the tension that can build up in relationships and families looks a certain way. And I will argue that it doesn't. There's no way to categorize people, wealthy, not wealthy, white, other people of color, children, seniors, whatever. And I'm personally just very grateful that you're working on this. The program that you're setting up with the chamber and with the local businesses, so you're providing them the stickers, you're providing, or
Stickers, these secret cards. There's also a leave behind, which I left for you all as well.
Alifa,
A summary of what we talked about. What the
great.
presentation is, and they get a certificate signed by you and by our CEO.
Okay, that says they're
That they
participating
participate
in the program.
community a little safer.
Okay, fantastic. Megan, maybe we can get, toward the end of the year, we can get a little report out from the chamber, and maybe you'd be happy to do that, because I do want to acknowledge that our city clerk, Megan Hasselshare, is on their board of directors. So thank you very much for the work you do as well. So it would be a real pleasure to hear back how the efficacy of the program and how you feel it's going here. I think that'd be
Yes,
really important.
we wrap up, we'll give you all the numbers.
Excellent. And then we can, have an opportunity to discuss continuing to invest in the program in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Does any member of the public have anything they want to say on this item, in this community presentation? Anything, Megan? Okay. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. All right. Having no public comment, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. And we're going to move on to presentations item B, update on operations and maintenance condition of City Hall. So this is our internal staff. We have Jeremy Kirshner and Syed Martuza, Director Martuza, and Assistant City Manager. Is that correct? Did I say that right?
Yeah, thank you for permission.
Assistant to the City Manager. I gave him Kiki's job? Oh, okay. Well, both, thank you very much. We're really looking forward to having this presentation so we can learn a little bit more about some of the deficiencies in this particular building. I think many of us were here when rain was pouring in and buckets were pouring in, and we've been here freezing and we've been here hot. So we've personally experienced a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight, I think, but it's great to have a summary. So off you go.
Well, good evening, Mayor Coulson, Vice Mayor Stevenson, council members. We're going to give a brief presentation on some of the space limitations of our existing City Hall, as well as some major upcoming costs to keep our City Hall functioning.
Yeah, keep going and I'll join.
Okay. So we'll start.
You did get promoted.
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
a big promotion there.
I guess I need to take on more of this. So In late 2023, Group 4 Architecture completed an existing conditions report for the current City Hall. And some of their findings are on this slide. So we have about 26,000 square feet in our existing City Hall. But unfortunately, 32% of that space is circulation, meaning it can't be used by staff for office space. The industry standard is about 20 to 25%, so we have significantly more wasted space than the average. That also means that we have about 169 square feet per employee, and the industry standard is 200 to 250 square feet per employee. This means crowded workspaces. I can attest to that. I shared a cubicle for the first year of my employment here. So space is really tight, and an even better illustration is that we currently have 4 employees working off-site, our building inspectors, who cannot physically fit in this building. And so Group 4 also estimated the space we may need, accounting for certain amounts of growth. A conservative estimate is about 20% growth over the next 10 years. That would require 32,400 square feet to 40,500 square feet, which is obviously significantly more space than we have right now. The city of Newark accounted for 20% growth, and they have already exceeded the size of their current city hall. So 20% may be too conservative for growth for the city. Yeah, next slide.
Good evening, Mayor, Madam Mayor, Coulson, and council members. So we have been talking about problems with City Hall, and many of you have experienced it many times. So over the last several years, staff has been doing condition assessment of the building to see what would it take us to keep this building operational, and 5-year, 10-year time frame. And we have updated cost estimate that if we were to stay in this building for the next 5 years, we have several large capital improvements to make. Estimated is $16 million the next 5 years. And similarly, if we were to extend the stay for 10 years, we would have to make another $35 million, $35 million altogether, $35 million worth of investment. That's just to keep this building safe for the public and for the employee. It will also require a relocation of employees to some other facility, and the costs are also built in for that. Next slide, please. Again, so what is actually wrong with the City Hall? Building is 55 years old building, and building has not had any significant upgrades since its original construction. It was designed for older seismic standards that were back in the 50s and 60s. Several new laws have been passed since then that our building is outdated from a structural requirements point of view. A serious earthquake would cause substantial structural damage and a potential loss of life. Huge deficiencies in the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing equipment. They have all been sort of beyond their designed life. It leads to high maintenance. We're just band-aiding the building, the pipes, the plumbing, the electrical. If we were to plug in a heater, or because our building does not adequately heat up, if we were to plug in a heater, it blows the fuse. So we have to manage that. Sometimes our servers go down because of electricity is going down. Luckily, we have the backup generator, but we have this problem throughout the year. Also, we don't find parts, the old parts for the HVAC or plumbing. We don't find those parts in the industry. Last year, we had to have the air conditioning down for more than a month in the middle of the summer. And we had to, while we were looking for parts across the country. And also a major equipment failure, such as boiler, chiller going down, it could render the building inoperation. And that could mean that we cannot fix it, because fixing requires us to get into more problems, which is asbestos. And also building has many other issues, which I will not bore you, but fire protection is another issue. The building does not have fire sprinklers and inadequate fire alarms. Next slide, please. Now,
Can you go back? Because I think there was one last point that was really important on that slide, which is ADA and accessibility.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Yes, please.
Is definitely, our building is not ADA accessible. This council chamber is not ADA accessible. Our upstairs, our bathrooms are not ADA accessible. So we are able to manage it somehow, but making ADA accessible requires us to reconstruct the building. A large cost is involved.
I think that's really important in today's day and age. ADA to me is one of, I think, the council's top priorities. I mean, if you had someone like Lihia, who is, wheelchair bound, they would have a very difficult time sitting up at this dais, and we'd have to make some significant accommodations.
Thank you, ma'am. Next slide, please. So major structural and seismic upgrade. It's hard to demonstrate what seismic improvements are required because pictures won't really, it's hard to get have those pictures shown. There are major seismic and structural upgrades. What it means, for example, this building has no columns, no structural columns. So if there were an earthquake, this roof walls could collapse and the roof would fall down. And that's the extent of the situation you're looking at. Similarly, if you look at the building, City Hall, the main building, there are no shear walls throughout the building. So you have to build shotcreting or steel columns in between every window that goes up and down, both all the way from bottom up to the second floor. And then you have to anchor the roof structure and anchor the second floor deck. If not, it's at risk of collapsing and falling down. And the garage itself is also, we have to rebuild the garage in the elevator area to make it seismically safer. So when you look at it, all of this work means significant, massive reconstruction of the building. And you cannot have people working here. And all of that work would touch asbestos. Every place that you open up the roof or plumbing, there is asbestos. So the cost of this seismic and structural upgrade is estimated at $10 million. Next slide, please. Asbestos, it's widespread throughout the building. And removal of asbestos is estimated at $600,000. It's just if we were to just focus on that. And the picture here shown on the slide is that you can see that's a popcorn ceiling and it's asbestos spray. When asbestos gets older, aged, I mean, when it gets aged, it starts to break down and it crumbles and becomes a powder and it falls on the false ceiling. And then eventually it escapes down into the environment. And that is a hazard. And so we have a situation that we're trying to manage it, but it's a major safety concern. Again, as mentioned before, every one of these major improvement, HVAC, lighting, plumbing, all of them will touch upon the asbestos. I think asbestos, there you go.
Yeah, so I'll start to get into the HVAC. So the estimated cost of replacement for existing HVAC system is about $2 million. We have a bunch of issues already with our HVAC system. You may notice that in some parts of the building, we have completely different temperatures than others. There's a major risk of failure soon if it's not addressed. And unfortunately, as I just mentioned, you can't really address HVAC without also addressing asbestos. So that's driving up the cost of the replacement here. And once we start getting into HVAC issues, we're going to have to relocate staff, which is further going to drive up the cost. Next slide.
Plumbing. Plumbing is, I think I tried to touch in my earlier slide about plumbing. The estimated cost of plumbing replacement is $1.5 million. The pipes are corroded. Back in the day, they did not use the pipe like PVC and other pipes. They use steel pipes, wrought iron pipes, so the pipes are significantly corroded. confined space to make repairs requiring reconstruction. You have to break down the wall, break down part of the building to be able to access that. And then obviously asbestos need to be addressed for construction workers. And also would require the facilities to be shut down or do the work on weekends, requiring, again, additional costs.
So next is electrical and lighting. We have an estimated replacement cost here of $1.5 million. So it would require installation of new panels, new wiring, and new conduit. We're already seeing frequent power issues. For example, our building was built and started construction in 1969. It was not meant to support the technology that we now rely on. So we constantly see, especially in these chambers, our electronics failing, and that's partially because our wiring wasn't meant to support it. We would need to completely modernize our electrical systems in order to support our existing devices.
Roof replacement, you want to go for that? Or, you go. Okay. The next one is roof replacement. We have some pictures here, try to get you the, last winter, you may recall that our city hall, this chamber roof was leaking. And this happens a lot in other parts of the building. Our maintenance staff goes up there and put some bucket or some other means or put a tarp. Last year, we had a tarp out in the breezeway, on top of the breezeway to make sure that while the repairs are done, we don't have a leak down in the building. So we have that problem throughout this building. 55-year-old roof, it needs to be upgraded. And the cost of that is over $500,000. And that also requires remediation of asbestos. I think that concludes our presentation.
Okay. All right. Perfect. We'll have you wait up there. So I'm going to go ahead and first open it to colleagues who have questions for Director Matuza and Mr. Kirshner. Go ahead, Vice Mayor Stevenson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Relocation was touched upon in a number of those different areas of some of the deferred maintenance and the cost to repair. I'm assuming that's largely related to either access or asbestos abatement. And you mentioned that you also included costs for some of that relocation. Is that relocating everybody given it's asbestos? And if so, for how long would that be?
It depends on what level of work we do, the scope of work. If we were to do seismic and structural upgrades, it would be complete relocation of staff for at least 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
You're looking at almost a $35 million worth of work, essentially a complete reconstruction of the building. Of course, you will not get any single new square foot in the building, but you will have to retrofit the building. And then also when you look at when you're touching the structural elements, you also have an opportunity to upgrade the HVAC, the roof, and also asbestos at the same time. So all of that requires approximately 3 year, likely 3 year relocation. If we were to just do small work, roof replacement alone, that might be a smaller time frame, but it will require complete staff relocation, and then timing may differ depending on what else we're doing in addition to roof.
Yeah. So safe to say that the relocation cost would be a non-productive cost in the sense that it's a one-time expense, and relocating that many people is just back of the envelope was like $5 million one time.
It currently
Just from the
have, I'd like to point out that our estimated costs for the relocation are not up to date and not looking at, we haven't updated the market value right now, but they were updated a few years ago. That's the part that I did not have the right number, but it could be a lot more than $35 million total figure.
Yeah.
If we were to look at the current market.
That's my sense.
Yeah, we've done some very preliminary research on, rents in the city and what it would cost to relocate. And it would be, to really squeeze us into a rental property, would probably be about $1.7 million a year. And then plus the cost of the physical relocation. Somebody who's going to move all the equipment, you have to pay for the IT setup temporarily and then the move back. So it's a really expensive process.
Yes.
To add one more,
Oh, please.
that can happen in God forbid, in an emergency situation.
Oh, yeah.
If we had an earthquake, we have to, or on a short notice, we have to relocate the building and relocate all our infrastructure for conducting, including phone system, IT, and all of that. And that is a huge risk for a city's normal operation.
Thank you. Do I see Councilwoman Lee, please? Start with you.
Have there been done any tests on if there's friable asbestos around, and are there any attempts to seal it if there's any loose asbestos?
From time to time, our staff brings in outside companies to test asbestos in the air. We have sampling done in the building, and when we do that, it's typically done on the weekend. We collect air samples, make sure that there is no floating asbestos in the air, so that to keep the employees. So we do that from time to time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilman Brownrigg, please.
Thank you. I'll hold a comment for later, but on a question, so the estimate is 16 million over the next 5 years, and then an additional 19 million over the ensuing 5 years, right? For a total, or 35, 36, whatever the total was. And also then there is, your estimate is that first 5-year chunk of work would require 3 years of the staff working elsewhere? 3 years of relocation?
So we looked at between 1 and 3 years for $35 million estimate, it would be 3 years approximately. So if it's 5 years, it could be over a year. Yeah.
Got it.
It could be 18 months. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
And so would you add another roughly 1.7 million a year plus relocation costs? You're probably close to another $6 million in.
That's the one.
Potentially, yes.
Yes, okay. Yes, and yes, Councilwoman Papajan, are you good? No questions? Okay.
No questions, thank you.
Let's see. I think I had a couple. How, on a scale of like 1 to 10, Director Matuza, sustainable is this building? In other words, like our new community center is a net zero energy building. It's got LED lighting. It's the top state of the art, everything. Is this on a 0 to 10? Where are we on this building?
We're in 0.
Okay. That's what I thought. So we have a 0 and we have a 10. Members of the audience, please hold your cards up. You do not win the gold medal. Really appreciate that honesty and candor in it, because this community has repeatedly, with our climate action plan, always supported a more sustainable, holistic infrastructure, whether it's our roads or our streets. But I also think it's our buildings, and it's why we push so hard for the net zero energy when we replaced the $80 million community center. And we heard loud and clear. Combine that with the ADA access issues, and to me, those are very high priority issues for our community, in the compassion that they show for inclusivity and wanting to make sure that every person that works here and the hundreds and thousands of people that come here are participating in, a green environment. So that's sort of one, just sort of comment, but question. And I think, how long have we kind of been pondering this or studying it? I know the community center was, probably 20 years to get that going. And I know we've been looking at this also, but we're trying to prioritize different, we prioritize that first because that's got a huge number of community members that come through and staff. And it was 88 years old. This building's never going to make it to 88, so we're going to have to deal with it next. So kind of, what would you say the timeline that you've been talking about this?
In my tenure here, I recall the first assessment condition we did was 2007.
2007.
That's if my memory serves me correctly, 2001 was the first facilities master plan. The city was looking at co-joining the community center and the city hall, looking at a joint project somewhere either here at this location or in near the Washington Park. And then subsequently, the building condition continued to get worse. And then city did assessment conditions and see what we need to prioritize it. And we've been band-aiding it, keep it going. And then obviously you mentioned the community center project was older, needed to be addressed before. And so that is done. And now this is next.
And we've addressed the courtyard, we've addressed the library, now we've addressed the community center. These are all very public, except for the courtyard, very public-facing jobs. I know we also have some other projects like our parks courtyard that is going to need attention down the road. But I think it's important to kind of think about it in the whole complexity of the master plan of all the city facilities, that this building has really been held together with string and tape in order to do the other really important public outfacing work. If there are no additional questions from colleagues, we'll have some wrap-up comments if you want. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I had a question. You mentioned space heaters blowing fuses, and how do you think it's affecting staff productivity to
Question.
temperature fluctuations, leaks?
It does big time. I don't have statistics to share with you at this time, but staff has been complaining about, cold condition in the building and sometimes very hot. Conference room A downstairs it becomes so hot. And then other parts of the building is cold, way too cold. And so we have staff sending requests for fixing pipes, fixing heater, hot water, cold water, and our maintenance staff responds to the best degree they can. And obviously it's not good enough. So it does affect the staff morale. It does affect their ability to work in an environment that they feel welcomed. So it does go a long way in terms of
Thank you.
taking over from productivity.
Please, Mr. Brownring,
Well,
Councilman Brownring.
Director Murtuza, what do you think the public, in terms of the utility of this building to the public? I mean, what's your sense of?
My sense is that everyone loves the location of this building, the city hall, the looks of the building. Unless you come into the building and you live, you won't really know. If you're here for a short time, you don't get the idea. But one thing I can share with you is that parking is a huge problem. People complain about parking when they come here for getting permits, building permit, planning permit, public works permit. They can't find parking in the city hall because we have a very small parking lot. And then also the streets in front of the city hall get crowded. I mean, with parking, people go park in the residential neighborhood to do business. And then we get complaints from the residents about non-residents parking. So it is a challenge. But I think the location is what people are used to, but then there are a lot of challenges about parking. And also when we have any events, sometimes or council meeting or public meeting where a lot of people are coming to the meeting and there's no room for parking. And then residents, we do hear complaints from the residents about it.
The other challenge is that the area upstairs in the planning and building area is very constrained. And so if people are coming in to get their permits, there, not a whole lot of area for people to transact business with the, building plan checkers or the planners. And then they're going up and down the stairs to pay for things. You got to go upstairs, you go downstairs, you don't know where you're going. In an ideal world, we'd have a one-stop shop where finance, building, planning, and public works are all co-located, or at least reps from those areas are co-located so that people who are pulling a permit or, have some kind of business to do, they could come into one place, see everyone they need to see, pay whatever they need to pay, receive whatever they need to receive, and go on their way. And right now it's just very chunked up and really difficult.
I have to say, I've certainly noticed as a user that constrained space in planning and building also leads to a real lack of privacy. And there are times when you're talking about an application or what you might want to be able to do or not be able to do, or how you're going to, how much is it going to cost, that you really don't want to be having in front of other members of the public necessarily, I mean, so it's not, it's not the end of the world, but it's definitely an inhibition to doing the kind of work you want to do, I think.
Right. And if you were to go behind the curtain, you'd see the planning cubicles, and there's not really even room for them to roll out the plans. They're so tiny. And that's actually after we tried to fix the situation and we made it a little less messy, but we really didn't give them a whole lot of extra space because there just wasn't anywhere to put people. And actually the prior director cut down his office space to create space outside the office for an additional staff member. And, we're still constrained up there. And that's why 4 building inspectors had to go down the road to the old Sam Sandwiches shop. And that's where they're working out of because we don't have enough space for everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Madam City Manager, I have another just sort of broader question, which is, we've done a new general plan. It envisions our city growing by 20%. And when you grow a city from 30,000 to 36,000 people and you add another 2,500 units of apartments, I assume that, and I really respect your tendency to be run very lean and mean, but at a certain point, we have to somehow match our staffing to our growth. And so not being able to put people in a desk, and is this impacting both our ability to recruit, retain, and then also provide the kind of services that we need to provide to a growing, diverse city?
All of the above. I mean, we really are basically out of desk space right now. And so, Jeremy mentioned that he was doing desk sharing for over a year. We have other people who have to do that. And, again, planning and building are areas where, if you have all these new units, new commercial coming online, or just in the people are thinking about it, they have questions, they want to have meetings to talk about it. There's just nowhere to add that additional staff. And it's not just that the city is growing, it's that the mandates are growing. And so many years ago, we added an environmental regulatory compliance coordinator then we switched her environmental regulatory compliance manager. It was a position we didn't need way back when, but then all these new regs came down from the state and the feds. And so all of a sudden we needed a new person to do that body of work because we couldn't just chunk it out to all the, existing staff. And we needed someone specialized who had that knowledge and was able to, keep us doing what we needed to so that we weren't getting fined for not doing what we needed to do, not following the regulations. And we can expect more of that kind of thing coming down from, the state, the feds, whoever can do it. We are low man on the totem pole when it comes to regulations. And so, people pass them up here, we have to implement them down here. And often we can't do that with the staff that we have that's existing. And so then we have to figure out, well, if we hire someone in this department, is there a desk they can use on, Mondays and Wednesdays and then work somewhere else on Tuesdays and Thursdays? And then, if you're hoteling, it's really hard to feel part of the team. You're not available to the public necessarily if you don't have a spot that you can go to all the time. And so, balancing all of that has been really tricky with the space that we have.
And
Yes.
I would wager that with COVID increasingly in the rearview mirror, there's also, less of the I'll work at home kind of. We're seeing.
We do have a work from home policy. So people are hybrid if they want to be hybrid and their job allows it. But a lot of people are in the office a lot more. When COVID first happened, everyone went home and then people would come like one day a week. Now they have to be in at least 3 days a week for most people.
And
so
most of the private sector is finding the same thing.
Yeah.
There are some jobs that can productively be at home, but an awful lot has to be.
And even if, you're a person who generally does hybrid and works from home part of the time, stuff comes up. And so you're like, well, this is a day I'm normally home, but all of a sudden I have 5 meetings that are in person, or, we want all the staff to come. Like if you wanted to have a department-wide staff meeting, you're pretty hard pressed to do that if you don't have places for people to go.
Do their job. Okay. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Just one of the data points in the presentation talked about maintenance. And if I run the numbers, it's like $3.7 million a year just on maintenance in terms of the inefficiencies of this building, the extra work. I'm assuming some of that's contracted out, but does that impact also the employee base here in terms of their efforts, having to take care of issues that come up from a maintenance standpoint or from a repair standpoint?
Yeah, if I understood the question correctly, whether the staff also does some maintenance in addition to outside contractors. Yes, the answer is true, yes.
Yeah.
We do that. We do a lot of work where our staff does put together parts that are no longer available in the market. They fabricate them in the corporation yard, and they weld them and make it fit and somehow operational. So yeah, and then we do have a lot of contractors as well to be available on a short notice on an emergency repair. We do have all those emergency repairs almost every week, but people don't notice them because we have people working behind the scene, and they get it done. And people, especially people come in after 5, after 7 o'clock to make sure that things, whatever broken, gets fixed, especially HVAC.
Very good. All right, if there are no additional questions, I'm going to go ahead and open this up to members of the public who may have a comment or a question. You have to get up and come to the podium.
Yes, the presentation is very, very good and very consistent with what I do. And so council members, one issue that to save some cost and, relocation the personnel to another, we can also approach the local agencies such as San Carlos, San Mateo, to use maybe flexible hours with them. Some people can go there, and that's can save it was 3 million. We use that in Caltrans with Crissy Field. They had a building for us. All we had to pay the utility. But there was a project that we were going to do for that community, for Doyle Drive. So that's an option to save cost in that arena where you don't have to get a facility, where it's already a facility like San Mateo or San Carlos. They can use some cost on that one. That's one note that I can, share with you. Another one that we talked about asbestos a lot, and the reason asbestos being used is for fire resistance, as we all know. So now they're replacing it with the new materials, so wool or glass wool, so we can, do the fire resistance. So that's the two common. Then we can save some money on the structural point of view. They're on target. The building needs to be, retrofitted for sure to be, safe and everything. And even if we relocate people to another area, they should be also safe in that building, so we can have the safe for the public, for the employee, wherever they go. These are my notes, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a point of clarification to the city manager? Caltrans operates all over the state of California, so moving people around the state is not, or whatever. I'm guessing it wouldn't be efficient to move like our city staff to San Carlos.
Yeah, I don't think it works to have our city staff not working in our city, within our city limits. There's lovely buildings going up in Millbrae, but they're just not somewhere we would want to go because we need to be, close to our population and being able to serve them that way.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there
Any other comments, Madam City Clerk? Did anyone send any in? Any other comments from any members of the public? All right, then I'm going to go ahead and close. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment. I really want to just thank the staff. I'm sure people may have some concluding comments, but on behalf of everyone, just thank the entire staff. This has been, I think, a big job, not just for both Director Mertuzza and Mr. Kirshner, but a lot of other people have pitched in to help on this work, including the city manager, city attorney, and a lot of other folks. But at that, I'll go ahead and just open it for concluding remarks if anybody has anything. No? Okay. Yes, Council Member Lee.
Yeah, I appreciate that staff has been working under these conditions for so long, and that staff is looking out for all of us with giving us a great infrastructure and keeping our health and safety. And we owe it to staff to do the same, make sure they are working in safe conditions, that their infrastructure is steady and legal. And I don't want to wait for a disaster or a major system failure to have to address this, because then it gets much more expensive. You have to move people out under an emergency. So I hope we will take that into consideration.
Proactive, yes. Anyone else?
Agreed.
Is there, go ahead, yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I think that's a really important point that Councilmember Lee just raised, that, one never knows what's coming, but at this point, we're not in an emergency. That we can take the time we need to find the right solutions. And I do want to end with a question of solutions. We did a good job tonight, problem identifying. So I want maybe next time we can talk a little bit about solutions when we come back together. But I do think the point of not doing this when you have a gun at your head is a lot smarter. And I think that's really an important point, because who knows when that crisis happens. For me personally, and I've never shared this before, but I know all of that data about this building is true, and a lot of it scares the hell out of me, quite honestly. But for me personally, my moment came at a council meeting about 5 or 6 years ago when I watched a rat run all the way around that. And all the public were looking here and they didn't see the rat. And I'm like, oh, thank God, because then it dived down into and I'm like, okay, that's not the look I want for Burlingame.
You had to share that with us all.
I time to find.
Who am I?
Unburden myself. I've been carrying that a long time.
Oh, my goodness.
But, look, I think every one of us has been in this situation. This is the old car, right? This is the old car that needs new tires. And you have to decide, do you want to put new tires on the car? And you never feel more stupid. And this has happened to me. When you put 4 new tires on the car and then the engine blows the next week.
Yeah.
And you're like, I left $1,000 in that stupid car because I thought I could get another year or 2 of life out of it. And that's the situation that we confront here. I mean, I just can't, in good conscience, imagine spending $36 million on this building. I just can't see that as a steward of the public's. So I need to know what the options are, what the alternatives are. I think we need to talk about that, but that just feels to me like a really bad way to invest. That's putting the new tires on the old car. It's just dumb. So I don't think we're dumb, and we just have to figure out what to do next. But I appreciate the presentation tonight, because it's more urgent, I think, than I realized. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Definitely echo Councilmember Lee and Councilmember Brownrigg's comments. I had no idea we were not ADA compliant, or that we have safety issues related to asbestos, which can be problematic if there's an earthquake, because it would open it up and make the building inoperable for some period of time. So it is more urgent than, not that we didn't have really good reasons for other priority projects over the course of the past several years. And if I take Director Murtaz's timeline since 2007, 2001. I do think we need to get into the solution options sooner than later, and really appreciate staff, not only current staff, but any former staff that has been working in these conditions for the past couple of decades. So, yeah.
Anything? We good? Okay. Well, I think just sort of wrapping it up, one of the things that's really hard in Burlingame is people romanticize their buildings, and they romanticize the built environment. And there are buildings like our library that are worth saving because of the historic nature of the building and the sort of, stateliness of it, and they are feasible to fix and renovate. And in Burlingame, I think the important thing is to try to decipher when is it important enough to save it as a romantic, beautiful building that it may be versus when is it important to understand that a lot of what makes Burlingame charming and wonderful and an amazing place to live are the awesome people that work here and the amazing residents that we have. And so trying to figure out how to continue to attract such, highly qualified and capable staff that we have. And we owe them, just like we owe them a salary and we owe them everything else, we owe them a work environment that is safe and one they can be productive and perform at their highest. And if we don't, we are going to lose competitiveness. We're going to lose employees. It's going to be harder and harder to hire people. And we're the wonderful, beautiful, charming city that we have will go by the wayside because we're mired in the past and not able to look visionary at the future. So I really just hope we can all grasp that and have candid discussion. And we appreciate staff starting this and initiating it and knowing that this will be complicated and emotional for a lot of people to think about what the next steps are. But I appreciate colleagues persevering and staff for providing us data because I think data-driven choices are going to be easier to make. As Stephanie said, you have to have the data, you got to lead with your heart, which is about making sure that people are cared for, and then you have to have a spine. And this is a perfect example of kind of problem that we have to solve that's going to take the sort of narrative that you conveyed in your interview, and I am grateful for. So with that, we'll go ahead and close this really important topic and move on to public comments, non-agenda items. So this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on any item that is not on our agenda. They may do so for 3 minutes and must understand and know that we will not be able to respond because it is not on the agenda. So we will take it under consideration for a future time and possibly respond to them outside of the meeting. And I do have one yellow card. It's, is it Sandra Pam? P. Okay, thank you. Is it, did I get that right? PAM? PAN, Sandra Pam, Ms. Pam, welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council Member, thank you for this opportunity to talk about something a little bit lighter, but similar vein. I've lived in Burlingame for over 4 decades, and throughout my time here, I've cherished the evolving community that we built. To me, a true community is one that is inclusive and responsive to the needs of its members. As we've witnessed, Burlingame demographic is changing, and so are our community needs. One of the most significant shifts I've observed is the rise of dog ownership. The pandemic accelerated this trend, leading to a greater demand for space where our 4-legged friends can exercise and socialize. Our pets are more than just companions. They contribute significantly to our mental well-being and enrich our daily lives. Dogs that are not well exercised or socialized will be destructive, especially in confined spaces. As we talked about earlier, there will be major housing development of multifamily homes here in confined space. And therefore, finding creative ways to meet these needs is essential. With a growing and aging population, space becomes a crucial issue. There's no longer possible to have any public space that is for single use only. So we need to be creative. I'm specifically talking about one particular area, which is the Washington Athletic Field. There's a dedicated group of advocates for more what I call supervised, unrestrained play. In other words, AKA off-leash hours. So working families can exercise their dogs locally in their neighborhoods. It'll also allow the park to serve the many constituents in its neighborhood. This group of people that actually have dogs at the Washington Park is actively working with Parks and Recs to ensure responsible use of the field while respecting other field users. We're also proposing constructive options to incorporate the needs of this doggy group. I think we are a group that try to both provide solution as well as trying to solve a problem. We also like to collaborate with the City Council to incorporate these needs into summer program planning and overall city space planning to ensure that our public space serve the diverse need of all constituents. By doing so, we can create a more inclusive and functional community for everyone. So thank you for considering.
Thank you very much. Really, yes, I will agree with Councilman Brownrigg that that was incredibly articulate and very well conveyed. Okay, we're going to, any other members of the public, Madam City Clerk, that have sent in letters? Okay, any other members of the public that have something not on the agenda? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and move over to approval of the consent calendar. Are there any items that any members of the council would like to remove from the consent calendar? Yes, Councilwoman Papajohn.
Item C, please.
Item C, electric mobility devices. Any other items that anyone would like to remove? All right, are there any items that any members of the public would like to remove?
Item C.
Item C, okay. So we have that item pulled for additional consideration. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion to approve the other items on consent? Vice Mayor?
I'll make a motion to approve items A, B, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and L.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Councilmember Lee. Madam City Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Papajohn.
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stevenson,
Yes.
Mayor Coulson.
Yes. All right. We will move on to item C, which is adoption of an ordinance adding chapter 13.56 electric micro mobility devices to the Title 13 of the Burlingame Municipal Code. And I will open it up to Councilwoman Papajohn for an opportunity to
Thank you.
share her
Thank you,
thoughts.
Mayor Coulson.
Yes.
I just wanted to bring this up for brief discussion. I've been talking to some constituents and the community and hearing that, you know, the Bay Trail is used for, by some to commute to and from work. And they commute on bikes and micromobility devices as well. And so I think it's really important to be consistent in how we regulate the Bay Trail with our neighbors. I think consistency is really good. So I would be in favor of like bringing this back for future study on, you know, Bay Trail access and maybe considering even like a speed limit on the Bay Trail specifically instead of prohibiting micromobility on the Bay Trail.
Okay. There's, we have a comment. Does anyone else have a question or a comment regarding this item? Yes, please.
Thank
The woman Lee.
Thank you, Mayor Coulson. I agree that I'm concerned about the Bay Trail, and I don't know if the solution is to make that particular area exempt from this, or to set a speed limit, or to say class 1 bikes are okay. But I do think it would be useful to address it. We certainly don't want people getting back into cars because they can't traverse one section of the city.
Madam Mayor, I wonder if the city attorney would like to opine on the best way to proceed.
So before us today, I mean, there's a few different options, of course. If there's a majority of the council that would like to pass the ordinance, it is on second reading. So could go that direction, but obviously we have two comments that sound like they may not be going that direction. The other option would be, of course, to bring it back for a first reading after amendment. So what we would need to know as staff, and I welcome Chief Matucci to come up if he'd like to speak about it too. But what we'd need is just direction on what you would like that ordinance to either look like, either if it's based on just certain language that's changed, or as Councilmember Papajohn mentioned, if it's ideas of what can be done in certain sections of it. What we can't do is amend the ordinance here today and try to pass it because we'll have to bring it back for a first reading in 2 weeks. So really, I think just further discussion is helpful to determine whether there is a majority of the council that would like to go a certain direction.
Mhm.
And if not, just direction on what you would prefer staff to bring back to study at a future date.
So
Yes, please.
So if I may ask, Councilmember Papajohn, there was a letter that we received from a person who commutes and doesn't want to be on Airport Boulevard, if I recall. Is that what we're responding to, or have there been other inputs too?
I have heard from other inputs as well, and just some anecdotal people telling me that, they use it for commuting, they have in the past, and that it would just be better to put a speed limit if possible. So that was not the only one.
If I may, just one other, I can't remember, perhaps Director Martuso can correct me, but we are working on making Airport Boulevard safer, which includes bike lanes.
Mhm.
But that's not complete yet, right? Not done yet. So, I mean, I do feel like maybe we're in this
Interim.
between period where, people don't feel safe, but they will feel safe on Airport Boulevard. And then maybe then we could be more strict about not using the bay trails. Because I have to say, as a pedestrian on those trails,
Yes.
I wouldn't be so comfortable with somebody whizzing by on an electric bike. I mean, the trails, especially on the lagoon side, are quite narrow. And if you have a dog, then it's even harder. But I also don't want somebody, I mean, I take the point that we don't want to discourage biking as a means of commuting. I guess I just wonder if there's something that we could tie in.
I do want to point out that biking would still be allowed on regular biking. So if you have just a regular commuting bike, I think you can
Still go on
I think you can commute on the Bay Trail.
That's correct, yes.
So really what's happening is it's
e-bike.
taking out the e-bikes.
We-
So,
Public comment if we want to read.
oh, sure.
So I have 3 emails that came in on this item. The first one is from Tyler. And he states, "It has come to my attention that there are plans to adopt a city ordinance banning electric mobility devices on recreational trails throughout the city. In the supplied Exhibit A from the August 19th meeting, Class 3 e-bikes were incorrectly categorized as having throttle assist, when in fact they are only pedal-assisted devices. I ask you to reconsider such a broad ban and spend the time to draft an amendment that makes sense, taking into account existing law that may achieve similar results. I'm an avid cyclist, both for recreation and commuting through the city. I've enjoyed the recent California Ave bike lane project and I'm hopeful that we will see similar projects throughout the city to reduce reliance on cars. Recommending the use of Sharo infrastructure feels like a step in the wrong direction. I often make use of such lanes on Airport, Rollins, Truesdale, various neighborhood streets, and drivers do not understand that bicycles are meant to be there, putting my life in jeopardy. Much of the outcry around e-bikes seems centered on e-motorcycles that exceed 30 miles per hour. These are not street legal and are not assigned to a particular class, as outlined in CVC 312.5. I've even encountered a teen on a gas-powered dirt bike riding down Cortez. How many citations have police issued for operating such vehicles on city streets, electric or gas? Children riding without helmets, exceeding posted bicycle speed limits on trails. The current proposal does a little to address the issue of unclassified e-motorcycles when there are existing measures that could be taken to improve public safety. Thank you for considering alternative solutions." The next email comes from Mike Swire. He states, "I understand the concern with improper use of e-bikes on our streets and facilities. Nevertheless, this blunt and heavy-handed outright ban on a new technology instead of an incremental enforcement of bad actors is poor policy. First, why are we restricting vehicles when bad behavior from a few is the problem, not the technology? We do not restrict Ferraris in Burlingame despite their being capable of 200 miles per hour. In fact, we welcome them for certain city events. Instead of banning Ferraris and other fast cars, we restrict their improper use through speed limits. Nevertheless, we haven't banned fast cars. Here's another analogy. A resident recently intentionally ran over several children with a 6,000-pound SUV. We didn't ban massive SUVs. However, instead, we punished the bad actor. Why not do the same for bad e-bike riders? Second, the city of Burlingame should not be pushing e-bike riders, including young kids, out of parks and onto adjacent streets before first conducting a safety audit of streets adjacent to those areas. The area around Washington Park is filled with inexperienced and dangerous teen BHS drivers. Will we increase serious danger for kids on e-bikes in an attempt to reduce danger for those on or in parks? Third, the restriction on e-bikes on countywide facilities in Burlingame, namely the Bay Trail, is not appropriate. We do not have different speed limits or vehicle rules every few miles on 101 as drivers cross city limits. It is similarly improper for the city to restrict proper e-bike use for those traveling from south of Burlingame to destinations north of Burlingame and vice versa. The city should consult with other municipalities before making a decision that has an enormous impact on the commute habits and safety of trans-Burlingame commuters. Based on conversations with neighboring elected officials, I don't believe this has occurred. As chair of the CCAG BPAC, which takes a countywide view of bike and pedestrian conditions, I believe this issue is better dealt with at the county level in order to have consistent and clearly defined rules. Again, it seems preferable to focus on high speeds and bad actors instead of preventing law-abiding e-bike riders from slowly and safely riding their bikes throughout Burlingame. The last email comes from Allie. She says, why are we considering restricting micromobility devices across the board to address a behavior issue from a minority of riders? If reckless speed is the issue, a speed limit in parks and recreation areas should be enforced. This is similar to how we treat cars. Cars are capable of excessive speeds, but we allow them on the roads with speed limits. Forcing people using micromobility devices to share roads with cars without protection will discourage them from considering these forms of alternative transit. Shares are stressful as a bike rider because many motorists are unaware of the laws about passing bikes, and these laws are not properly enforced. Every cyclist I know has experienced an unsafe pass from an ignorant, negligent, aggressive, or just plain impatient driver. These interactions can really ruin bike transit, and I've never seen a citation issued for an unsafe pass. Separated bike paths help everyone. Lastly, I believe parts of this ordinance are out of compliance with California AB 1909. I understand this bill is to authorize local governments from restricting motorized bicycles on hiking, equestrian, or recreational trails. The Bay Trail specifically is not purely recreational. It is a commuting thoroughfare used by lots of e-bike and e-scooter commuters. Additionally, one of the roads recommended by the council in the last meeting as an alternative to the Bay Trail, Airport Boulevard, is currently a construction zone and hazardous to cyclists. I request that the council carefully evaluate their intentions for this ordinance and determine if the current version is actually addressing the problem it purports to solve. Thank you for your time and service.
Okay, while we have public comment open, I'm going to go ahead and just continue. If anyone in the audience has comments they want to share, they can do so right now. All right. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. But I am going to take 1 minute and address a couple things. So first of all, we have been enforcing, and I think our chief can concur with that. And I believe in the crime statistics report, we cited last month something like 27 different bikers for helmet and traffic violations. So that comment is not true. We are actually doing a really pretty good job. And I spent a day out there with our PD and talking to kids about why it's important to wear your helmet and why you have to stop at stop signs. So, and I've noticed a much more increase in kids wearing helmets and less treacherous behavior downtown. But I also feel very strongly that we are not prohibiting these, and through the parks, you can walk your e-bike through the park. You can get off and you can walk. There is no park in Burlingame on like Washington Park you can walk through in 5 minutes. So if somebody needs to ride an e-bike across town and then get to the park and then walk through to get to Burlingame High, it's going to add 3 to 5 minutes onto their commute. So I'm pretty adamant about at least our urban parks, which are getting incredibly dense. There are 200 and 300 little tiny children playing out there, senior citizens, and we've had 3 patrol officers out there trying to manage the situation. And frankly, the e-bikers have, they don't yield, they won't stop, they just don't. And I just have to say, I have to speak out for the elderly, the seniors, the little children, and the families, and the people with dogs. They're also sharing that park. And the behavior has not really changed. So I see no problem saying you can get to the park and walk your micromobility through, or your regular bike or whatever, if it's just safer. So that I kind of for me is like a hard no stop on that. If you feel unsafe riding around the high school, you have to just get off and walk on the sidewalk and feel safe. I'm open to having a little more conversation around the Bay Trail. But I also, I ride out there, was out there just last week, riding the entire trail. And I have an e-bike and I rode in the Sharrows. And I personally am not a very experienced rider, but I felt safe enough for myself out there. And the reason I didn't ride on the trail is because it was loaded with people at 5 o'clock walking their dogs and walking. And I just felt like for me, it was actually safer to ride on the Sharrow than it was to maneuver around all the people. I'm happy to let bikers make those decisions, but I also do think this is about also pedestrians and other people who use the Bay Trail that may not be on micro mobility. You can ride a bike. I mean, maybe we can, if one solution would be like level 1 bikes could be allowed, or you could ride your e-bike, but you have to take a, you can't, like, I think your suggestion on speed limit is potentially good. The hard part is enforcement, right? It's hard for, I guess you could sit with a radar gun and imagine how, measure how fast people are going and give tickets out. But I am open to any other comments or suggestions or thoughts.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I really appreciate your comments, and I do agree with you about parks. People can walk their bikes through parks. I actually think it might be easier, and I would welcome Mr. Matucci's comments on enforcement. If speed is easier to enforce, then maybe trying to figure out if it's an e-bike or a micromobility device. But I just really don't want to discourage any commuters, on the Bay Trail. And if we say it's prohibited, then I wonder if people will follow those rules, or if the commuters will just break them and ride anyway in the mornings or the afternoons. I don't know. I'd rather limit the speed. I don't know if this is an option, but I'd be open to even consider adopting, the ordinance if we could bring it back and just maybe further study the Bay Trail, sorry, since that seems like that's mainly the point of contention. But it just seems like maybe we should study the access on the Bay Trail and just the consistency, again, from what we heard from the public on just the neighboring cities and not having a different rule in our,
Really good point.
in our city, and not having a different rule here and then, something different in other cities.
Other colleagues?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Lee.
I completely agree that the urban parks should remain under the proposed ordinance because of the reasons you cited. I'm wondering if, and I don't know enough about e-bikes to understand this. I know some you can just like ride like a motorcycle, others you have to pedal. And is it possible we would do something like you can't, I mean, it's a big trail is very flat. Or at least I'm not actually sure about that one section. Is it?
It's flat relatively.
So could we say turn off the motor during that time if it's a
I think speed is so like there's just having ridden 120 miles on an e-bike last week and on a trip, there's various levels. There's, off, there's eco, there's just different levels based on the bike. And I think it would be very hard for police to enforce. But I want to go back for a second because maybe there's just a cleanup on this whole thing. Right now, the way the ordinance is written, you can still ride a regular bike at a high speed through our park, which is also a little still concerning to me. So I'm almost wondering if it needs to come back and just say, bikes and micromobility in parks, we need to walk. We just need to kind of get off our bikes in parks to make them safe as they get more dense. And then bifurcate that out and consider the Bay Trail. And do we have any observable data? I'm not sure, City Attorney Spansale, if there's any observable data, like have we had a lot of reports of people, is it anecdotal or are there collisions or what's going?
Honestly, I think having Director Glomstead or Chief Matucci come up would probably be.
Sorry, Chief.
Sorry, Chief.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out the best way to approach it. Like if it's
Speed or if it's something.
well, and do we want to like bifurcate it or come back with sort of a different direction on parks that's maybe a little more restrictive and a little less restrictive out on the Bay Trail? Yes, thank you, Chief.
So I could certainly, I don't have numbers for you. This would just be anecdotal on my behalf, but I'm not aware of any reported accidents either on the Bay Trail or at the parks between a bicyclist and a pedestrian. But that's just off the top of my head. I can certainly research that.
Okay, well, that's good to know. It's please, yes, Councilwoman Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Coulson. When you talk about all bicycles, perhaps banning riding all bicycles, there are little kids on.
That's true.
Bicycles,
Yes.
and they just love going around.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are there, on the e-bikes, is there an odometer or not?
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Different levels.
And they go, I mean, you can go.
Level 1 is pedal assist and there's no throttle,
Okay.
right?
No, level, right.
Level
and I have level 3 does, I have a level 3 as well. I have a level 1 and a level 3, and my level 3 does not have a throttle.
Only level 2 has a throttle. And they have different speeds. So I believe level or class 1 is under 20 miles an hour and class 3 can go up to 28.
But class 1 has no throttle.
Class 1 and 3 do not have throttle. Class 2 does have a throttle and pedal assist.
Yes, Chief.
I feel like. So class 1 is pedal assist only. There's no throttle on it and it's a maximum of 20 miles an hour. Class 2 is pedal assist or throttle, maximum 20 miles an hour. Class 3 is pedal assist or throttle, maximum 28 miles an hour.
Okay, great. And you can have a class 3 without a throttle, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's what I have.
No, class 2 and class 3, both, the way the definition reads, they can have independent throttle.
They can have what?
Independent throttle.
Oh, independent.
Throttle
Okay.
out. Class 1, it only helps when you pedal. There's no independent throttle.
Yeah.
Class 2 and 3 both have independent throttle. And the difference between those is class 2 is 20 mile an hour max, class 3 is 28 miles an hour.
Got it. Okay. I see what you're saying. The buttons that you push to increase. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Yes, please.
Just a few comments. So I think overall, we're all looking for the right outcome, which is provide a safe environment and at the same time encourage alternative modes of transportation. And it's always been tough because our roadways were designed for cars and not for pedestrians, not for bikes, and we have to take measures. So I get the commute interest that was articulated in some of that feedback. The issue I see though is it's not just the kids that are abusing the speed or driving unsafely. I see a lot of commuters incredibly unsafe, traveling on the roadways, traveling on the Bay Trail, and they may have a helmet, but they're 35, 40, they're commuting. So it's a broader problem than just the kids.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that there's no blanket statement that the commuters are behaving themselves because I see it every day. I see people running through cars on the street on California Drive. They're on skateboard-like mobility devices, they're on all sorts of things. So it's not just bikes either. But I do think if there is an opportunity where we can limit the speed or put only type 1 where it's pedal assessed, where you can't quite get to the speed that makes it dangerous, then maybe the Bay Trail could be pulled out from the ordinance. But I don't think any urban
Okay.
park is a great environment for any type of mobility that goes faster than 20 miles an hour. That's just a recipe for.
Yeah. Please,
That makes sense.
Councilman Brownrigg, yeah.
You know, I think our council has always prided itself on being able to move forward with a decision. And I know that none of us likes going back and forth on things, but I do appreciate that this one might need a little bit of work.
I think so.
And I personally, I am drawn to the mayor's distinction between park and recreation area. I felt that there was pretty widespread support for not allowing somebody to ride an electronic bike through, say, Washington Park or Ray Park, for example, and or any of our other parks. I think where we've gotten into trouble is this broader recreation area, and I think maybe what I don't know if there'd be support for this, but perhaps, Mr. City Attorney, if we came back just with parks and we actually had a diagram that showed people which parks we're talking about, it's more defined. I do also agree with the vice mayor, but I think we said this last time as well, that this was only a first step, that we all
Right.
acknowledge that there are maybe other steps we need to take with respect to the, people actually operating them on the streets. Like we heard that loud and clear too from the public. And we weren't trying to address that. We were really trying to address a very simple and fairly straightforward problem, which was people whizzing through Washington Park.
And Lincoln, possibly.
Yeah, exactly. So I wonder, because I don't know, I know none of us like beating something to death, but whether maybe that's a way forward.
Yes, so let me see if I can articulate this. So we can keep the ordinance as is, which allows biking through the parks on non-electronic devices. So if you're a little kid, you have a little bike, or your mom and dad, and you're driving through this park, and you're manually riding a bike, that's fine. Electronic bikes would be allowed, but they'd have to be walked, right? So they're not prohibited in the park, but you have to get off and walk through. You can't ride them in the park.
Yeah.
And then our Bay Trail, we would, for now, exempt that from the ordinance. Is that what you're thinking? Until we could study that a little more and understand, and maybe move a little further along with our less construction out there and things. And we acknowledge that it's not perfect.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think also, Madam Mayor, as actually Councilmember Papajohn said last time, what is a recreation area? We weren't even sure. So,
Yeah.
Maybe at this point, you regulate what you're doing, and then make sure we understand what recreation areas are and whether we think the same rules should apply.
Assistant City Attorney.
Sounds like a plan's formulating, which is great. I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
First, we are talking about electric micromobility devices in any park or recreation area. So when we talk about the Bay Trail, we've talked a lot about bicycles. Are we talking about all micromobility devices being allowed on the Bay Trail, or just the class 1 or class 2, class 3 e-bikes?
I think they would have to be street legal. Like, I wouldn't want to see a golf cart on there, for example, or a.
We do have just scooters, I think would probably be the most common otherwise.
Scooters.
For seniors, yeah.
Like an e-scooter, like.
Oh, yeah.
Like a Lime scooter.
Oh, okay.
I wonder if, for efficiency's sake, if we limit the ordinance for now to city-operated parks, and then we come back and review what is a recreation area, which, have this conversation in a more organized
Yeah,
fashion
sure.
than trying to kind of do it off the cuff.
I think that might work. Would people be willing to do that?
Yeah, I think
And-
that would be more productive.
And
And
I think it doesn't have to be addressed immediately because we weren't really hearing a lot of complaints about the Bay Trail per se. I think in the public realm, the 20 people or so we heard from. So we could address it specifically to the parks as is, and then remove the Bay Trail recreation area from consideration. It would still include, though, I think Mills Canyon.
Is what?
As Mills Canyon would still be considered an urban park, I guess. I just don't think we're going to have micromobility in Mills Canyon, right?
You'd be crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but sometimes you
Or
gotta be
Skyline
clear with people,
Matter,
Skyline.
yeah,
right?
agreed,
And Skyline Park.
correct.
But we still need to bring this back for a first read.
So we do need to bring this back to first reading. I'm wondering, would the council be more comfortable with just exempting the Bay Trail itself and then
Yeah.
being it otherwise, because then it will encompass every other recreation area and city park?
Maybe. The problem is I don't think I don't think any of us really knows every other recreation area.
Probably.
That's the problem about sort of regulating in the dark, you know? I mean, maybe I'm not, like, for example, Skyline, is Skyline any of that?
It's so Skyline Park, because it's an off-leash dog park, it did not allow micromobility,
Heard that.
nor Mills Canyon. And it's kind of like, almost like this
It's
side
everything but
of,
the Bay Trail, like.
yeah, yeah, sort of everything but the Bay Trail. I don't hear anyone complaining that they want to ride an e-bike in Skyline Park or that they want to ride an e-bike in Mills Canyon either. So I don't think we heard from the public that those were problematic. I think what we're really hearing from the public, and having spoken to a number of the people who made public comment, the real focus is, I'm commuting on the Bay Trail from Millbrae to San Mateo. I can ride and you can, and there is no other alternative. Like, you have to ride from here, Coyote Point to Foster City. This is it. You got to ride on this. So we're a little different because we have sharrows and a combination and gaps in the trail. So maybe we, for now, allow it to stay just on the Bay Trail the way it is, but recognizing, and it may be 5 or 10 years from now, the council has to take that up once a lot of the Bay Trail gaps are fixed and things.
Especially once that happens.
If somebody's commuting from Millbrae to San Mateo along the Bay Trail, don't they have to, at least through parts of Burlingame,
Yeah.
to come out on Bay Shore Highway?
You do.
So they're not technically, I mean, they are riding on the road,
Yeah, oh, they are. You have to.
many parts of it. So
And it's not
I still get
prohibited.
concerned when somebody's going 25 miles an hour. I was just going across Golden Gate Bridge. They put the bikes on the left side, people on the right. They separate them
Mhm.
because too many issues with
Yeah,
bike
and
riders taking out walkers.
well, you do have the same rules, chief, that apply to any other, like, you can ride your bike on, city sidewalk, say, for example, if you're a kid, but you have to yield to pedestrians. I take it on the Bay Trail. If someone's riding a bike on the Bay Trail and a pedestrian's coming along, or they're coming up on a pedestrian, they have to yield to the pedestrian?
Yeah, I would assume. I don't know specifically, but that makes sense that I would assume that they would.
Yeah, I mean, my experience with it is, if I'm walking on a Bay Trail or walking on a trail and a biker is coming up on me quickly, they're yelling, on your right, or on your left, and trying to give you a signal, which can sometimes be confusing. Like, if you don't, you kind of,
It actually is written, if the Bay Trail is considered a park, it is written in our city ordinance that bicyclists in the park need to yield to pedestrians and obey any other park rules.
okay. So that's good.
Mhm.
So pedestrians have right of way, bikers need to yield. And we already know there's some spots that are gaps that they're going to have to ride on sharrows, so it's not perfect. And I think what we're going to have to do is just assume bikers are going to have good judgment and are going to ride appropriately
The Bay side.
on the Bay side. If you're riding at 5 a.m, or, sometime when there's no one out there at noon, what?
Also, when Airport Boulevard is finished,
Yes, then we can bring it back up.
right?
Yeah.
So we can definitely bring this back, just add a few words accepting the Bay Trail there, and that should be fairly easy. Also, just to clarify, related to your due care comments, Specifically in this ordinance, we talk about how every micromobility device user has to exercise due care, and that should encompass a lot of the activities that you were talking about.
Okay, perfect.
Building to pedestrians and acting in a safe way.
Right.
So we will bring those back. There's no further action needed on that since there's
Okay,
action being
One-
taken.
yes, please.
Mayor, one small definitional point, Mr. Attorney, is I wouldn't say the Bay Trail because people debate what is the Bay Trail. I would just say the Bayside or east of 101 or something.
Understood. We'll study that to make sure that we come up.
Yeah, something clever. And just by point of clarification, I think there was a question in the public comment regarding the state laws. As far as you know, and I think we discussed this ordinance will comply with state law.
I'll check again before we come back, but yes, my understanding is that this is fully compliant with state law.
Okay, fantastic. All right. I think this is a good start. And to those people who sit on the congestion management and bike ped at the county level with CCAG, I hope they will maybe take this up at a broader level at the county level of how to address this. It kind of is in their purview, and we'd really appreciate a little direction on that for the future. But I think this addresses the immediate need. Thank you. Okay. All right. There will be no action on item C. It'll come back at a future agenda time. And we will move on to item 10, public hearings, and introduce an ordinance to the City of Burlingame amending Chapter 3.05 of the Municipal Code to increase and clarify the claims settlement authority of the city attorney. City attorney?
Thank you. Doing a little more talking than I expected. Appreciate the time. Good evening. This is, as you just mentioned, a update to Burlingame Municipal Code, Chapter 3.05. That's the chapter in the Burlingame Municipal Code that you might not read often, but actually gives all the powers and duties of the office of the city attorney. The only proposed changes we're talking about in this chapter is actually to section 3.05.040, which gives the city attorney the authority to do various things, including represent the city in all legal proceedings, frame all all ordinances and resolutions like we're talking about here tonight, contracts and bonds, finding the form of those, advising city departments on just the general law, and then to enter into settlements of claims or litigations up to a certain amount. Currently, that's $15,000 on their own. So on the city attorney's own volition, he can settle claims up to $15,000. Or with the concurrence of our city manager, that can go up to $20,000. So what that means is for any claim that we receive from a member of the public, that's $14,000. The city attorney can resolve that claim instantly. If it's $19,999, they can walk over, make sure that they brief the city manager. The city manager, if she gives her concurrence, then that claim can be settled as well. And it's $20,000 sent, then it would go to the city council, and the city council themselves would have to act on that claim, which can take a little bit of time. So this last item we were talking about there is obviously this of the ordinance. What we're proposing to do here is to raise those amounts. So from 15 to 20, we're hoping to go to 30 to 40. That's 30,000 on the city attorney's own volition, 40,000 with the concurrence of the city manager. The reason for the increase, and you may have read this in the staff report, it's pretty simple. Like the inflation of claims have just gone up. If you think about it, a car accident has essentially just doubled in price in the last 2 decades, because looked this up earlier today, the average car in 2000 was $21,000. The average car in 2024 is $48,000. So the cars are worth twice as much, so that twice the amount of authority can be helpful. As cars, homes, and hospitals go up, like a hospital stay has now risen exponentially. Even these minor accidents that this amount was meant to control, we're not able to take action on those small minor claims now. At the lower level, we'll have to bring all of them up to the city council as it's currently written. By roughly doubling it here, we're really just trying to capture the ability to resolve some of those claims. I just want to note that California only gives the authority to delegate up to $50,000. So unless we're a charter city, you can't actually even go above that amount. So we're not going quite to it, but just a little bit below and double what we have today. Finally, the ordinance proposes to make some small language changes. That's really just going to explicitly allowing the city attorney to reject all claims, which has been the practice historically here in Burlingame. But some other cities have better language that talk about exactly what they are allowed to do and how they're allowed to do it. We want to mimic some of that to make sure that the public understands, that ability does rest at the city attorney's office. That allows the city attorney to act on those claims a little more quickly. It allows the city to be better stewards of the money. It allows claimants to really get the resolution, whether it's
Mhm.
favor or not, so they can plan their next steps. So this is really just cleanup, along with, of course, the request for a little bit up in delegation of authority. But that's essentially all we're asking to change. The rest of the chapter would remain. It's just talking about the settlement authority to help us more efficiently process these claims that we get on a pretty regular basis.
Fantastic. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In terms of I have no issue with the dollar amount. I think that makes total sense, but oftentimes there's multiple claimants in a single incident.
Yes.
Are those decided at the individual level based on this new ordinance or new language that you're proposing, or would that also be considered in aggregate a total amount, therefore would have to come to council?
So typically a claimed incident is what we're going to be looking at. So if there was a car accident where a city official was at fault, but they harmed 2 cars, it would be both of those cars. The aggregate total of that incident would be what we're looking at, even if it's split across multiple claimants. We're looking at that total.
So if it went above 40,000, for example, you would have to bring it to council.
Absolutely. And nothing in this would preclude us from going to council on other claims that are below this threshold, but still are important to city business, which we would of course do. This is more to capture those smaller ones that we do see on an ordinary basis.
Thank you.
Good question. Anyone else? Questions? Okay. Yes, Councilman Brownrigg.
I think this is a common sense proposal. I just wondered if you might want to think in terms of future proofing it, if you wanted to set the city attorney's prerogative at 60% of whatever the state is and the city manager at 80%, because that's how the math works. And that way, if the state raises it, it just goes up automatically, because if they've raised it, it's probably a sensible thing to do.
I think that's a great point. The only concern I have is the city or the state's maximum just regarding the delegation authority that the city council can give. That amount's never changed, so I'm afraid that they just remain the same. But I think that's a great point, and it's certainly something we can.
But we're capped by it, right? I mean, wasn't that the point of your memo?
We're capped by the 50,000 yet, but the 50,000 has never changed. So.
Well, hope springs eternal, Mr.
That's true.
Well, why don't we, could we adopt it? Would people, well, I'll get members of the public to comment here, but might I just ask Councilman Brownrigg if you would be willing to adopt as is, and then in the event that the state of California were to come to us at that point, we could then make a change. We could bring it back under the purview of that council and make an adjustment to tie it on or link it on. I mean, if the state said we're going to move to, $500,000, I probably wouldn't be comfortable at 80% of that, or, you never know. So I just.
It was just a question.
No. I think it's a good question.
I think the efficiency of it sounds amazing. The one other concern I have with it is this allows claimants and claimants' attorneys to understand what the authority is, and it makes it explicitly clear. We want to make sure that if we all know and understand and are operating under the same
dollar amount
assumption.
And I withdraw the suggestion.
I think it's a great one, though.
Maybe would be
Less changes.
they would be hesitant to claim something that would require council approval.
That can certainly be a consideration. The ability to be able to resolve a claim quickly and not have to go into the city council and potentially open that up to 5 more individuals is helpful. So that's why we think the threshold that was there was working. It's just that the amounts have gone up exponentially. So we're trying to keep the same spirit of the amounts and of the negotiation, but not necessarily, go up to the full amount that we can.
Fantastic. Good. All right. If Madam City Clerk, do we have any members of the public who have sent in on this topic? Okay. Any members of the public that are with us this evening that would like to comment on this? All right. Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to call the question? Make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance of the City of Burlingame amending Chapter 3.05 of the Municipal Code. Would you like me to read the whole thing?
to adopt the first reading and bring it back for.
Yes,
Reading.
Yeah.
what I meant.
Yeah, thank you.
To adopt.
She did say that.
Yes,
She heard it late at night.
Efficiency.
And also
And we have a second from Councilman Brownrigg.
for that.
clear motion.
Okay. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Papajohn,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stevenson.
Yes.
Mayor Coulson.
Yes. Okay. Motion carries unanimously. And we move on to item 10B, which is adoption of a resolution approving vacation, which sounds like it's a vacation, but not a vacation. This is the other term of vacation of public utility easements, wire clearance easements, and anchor easements. And we have Director Matuza again with us this evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. We'll make it quick. Again, staff recommends that City Council hold a public hearing to hear any protests, and if there are none, adopt the attached resolution for approving the vacation of public utility easements and wire clearance easements and anchor easements at 1499 Old Bayshore Highway. This is part of a California Streets and Highway Code. The project at 1499 Old Bayshore Highway includes several easements, as I just indicated, and as part of their development, they have requested us to vacate those easements, and staff has been working with the utility companies and the developer to process this vacation and have also published public hearing notice and also posted notices at the vicinity of the easements. The city has not received any petitions or written comments objecting to vacation of these easements, as I recall, and I'd like to check with our city clerk to see if none.
Okay.
So city has followed the procedures as outlined in the Streets and Highway Code section 8320-8325. And after providing proper notice, City Council is required to hold public hearing and consider the proposed vacation. And if there are no protests presented, the City Council may adopt the attached resolution vacating the easements and require notification of all entities who have interest in these easements. And after the notice is issued, the city would coordinate with the developer to have any of those utilities vacated. But again, we have not received any protests. AT&T and PG&E has acknowledged consenting to the request.
Okay.
Be happy to take any questions.
All right. Does anyone have a question? Okay. Do we have any members of the public who've provided any comment? No. Any members of the public in the audience tonight that want to comment on this item? Okay.
Madam Mayor, may I
Yes. Yes, please.
offer a motion to approve the resolution approving vacating the public utility wire clearance and anchor easements at 1499 Old Bayshore Highway.
Great.
Second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Councilman Brownrigg and a second by Vice Mayor Stevenson. All roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Papajohn,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stevenson,
Yes.
Mayor Coulson.
Yes. All right. That wraps up our public hearings. Do we have any staff reports and communications from any members of council? All right. We'll go ahead and close that item. Council committee and activities reports and announcements. Anyone? I think we did a lot of that at the beginning. Okay, future agenda items. I think the one future agenda item that we discussed earlier tonight, we can't say it enough, is what we've heard all the problems of City Hall, so we need to start thinking about the solutions for City Hall. There's no, this will be up to the city staff to figure out when to put this on and what to do, but I just want to make sure that the public knows that that is on our crystal ball and will be, I take it, City Manager Goldman, on a future agenda item. Okay.
Madam Mayor, if I may ask just the status at our last meeting, it was, there was a suggestion to do a better job.
Oh, yes.
Of the meters on California.
Yes.
And I wondered if we have that scheduled or we have any sense of when it might get scheduled?
Talking about the times of the meters, yeah.
Yeah, going-
It is currently, I believe it's still unscheduled, but we'll be talking about future agendas at our staff meeting tomorrow. So I'll have a better sense after that.
Excellent.
Perfect. We'll get that on. I think
We didn't forget it. It is.
it's on our, it's on our
under up-
call. We just,
I thought we were going to get the iceberg.
You know how much I like the iceberg. And
all right.
use it
But-
if I need to.
Yeah.
I think there was enough interest of the public that it's probably something we can bring on and
Yeah.
maybe even put it on consent.
Syed has some.
Oh, yes. And say, Director Matusa, please.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to respond to Councilmember Brownrigg that staff is actually working on that project and will be going to Traffic Safety Commission later this month. And after that process, will be coming to council.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
And
Vice Mayor.
in that study, I'm curious if, because I think it was just quickly commented to maybe be 2 hours rather than 10, but are there other modes that you're looking at that would balance the need of the?
Mr. Vice Mayor, we're not actually allowed to talk about it,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just wondering what the,
but go to the Traffic Commission.
And go to Traffic and Safety Commission and they will be able to chit chat about it. I think this is great that we're kicking it back down there because that is exactly why we have our commissions. So this will be a very good way to resolve that and give the members of the public an opportunity to speak on it. And then maybe it can come to us on, with a recommendation from them on consent. So we don't have to have a large deliberation.
It would be nice because it feels relatively uncontroversial and
It can be pulled off.
ready to comment.
No, it can be pulled off.
There was a sense of urgency, I would.
Yeah. Yeah, conveyed.
Best.
Yeah. All right. Is there anyone that we need to close the meeting in acknowledgement of, that anyone is aware of? All right. No, it's all good news. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude the meeting and see everyone again in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.